The Naked Truth Report is sponsored by Kathleen Wells on AM 870, The Answer.
Welcome to the Naked Truth Report with your host, truth warrior and mythbuster Kathleen Wells, the place where we distinguish fact from fiction, where data is used to drive points home, and where Kathleen takes the position that Democrats and black politicians have destroyed black America. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report. Now, your host, Kathleen Wells.
Beach in the house, yeah. Oaktown, Oakland definitely in the house. Frisco, yeah. Frisco, and you know LA up in this. Pasadena, where you at?
Good evening. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report. I'm your host, Kathleen Wells. We're going to have a good show today. In fact, I'm going to go straight to my guest because so much is going on. I want to say welcome, truth warriors and mythbusters, to the Kathleen Wells Show. Welcome to the Oh, no, did I make a mistake? I said the Kathleen Wells Show. That's old habit. But I do want to say that my guest today, Prince Abdul Ali Seraj of Afghanistan, was on the Kathleen Wells Show. That's why I said that. Maybe. I don't know. I made a mistake, folks. This is the Naked Truth Report. It's not the Kathleen Wells Show. But my guest is Prince Abdul Ali Seraj of Afghanistan. I interviewed him. Gosh, he and I have been interviewing for probably like 8 years, I think, right?
No, it's been more than 8 years. About 8 years ago.
8 years. Right. In fact, wait, before you say anything, Prince Seraj, I want to tell folks to where they can find information about you. Let's see. You can Google Kathleen Wells, Prince Abdul Ali Seraj. The last name is spelled S-E-R-A-G, Prince Abdul Ali Seraj of Afghanistan. Google that and my name and Huffington Post, and you will see 3 interviews that Prince Seraj and I did about Afghanistan on the Huffington Post. And there you'll get, I have all his bio and everything like that. So you'll get his bio, you'll know what he's about, so on and so forth. But I just want to go straight to you, Prince Seraj, because what we're talking about today on the Naked Truth Report is terrorism and immigration. We're linking immigration to terrorism. And I think that you can enlighten my listeners about what terrorism is and why open borders is not a good thing for America, because you're experiencing open borders in Afghanistan. Is that right, Prince Seraj?
Yes, we have Kathleen. First of all, I just want to make a correction. The last name is S-E-R-A-J, not G.
Oh, sorry.
It's Seraj, yes. Kathleen, as you know, that when you interviewed me, it was 2009, I believe, when I was in Afghanistan working for the help to develop Afghanistan. You and I had a lot of conversation. As you know, that in 1978, the communists took over Afghanistan, and they killed a lot of my people. And then in 79, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. At that time, Mr. Reagan became the president of the United States. So President Reagan helped our people and our country, arming our people against the Soviet invaders, and that, in essence, helped us to defeat the Soviet Red Army. But in the meantime, a lot of our people were sacrificed. We lost about 3 million of our people during the battle against the Soviet Red Army, which is almost a genocide. And I also call it a migratory genocide, because 1.5 million people were killed in the country, and another 1.5 million as they escaped from Afghanistan and went to the mountains of Pakistan and deserts of Iran. But at that time, President Reagan graciously extended an invitation to Afghans who were suffering all kinds of difficulties and life-threatening situations in Afghanistan, extended an invitation to a number of Afghans to migrate to the United States in 1979. And he welcomed about almost close to 300,000 Afghans to the U.S. over these years. I mean, I'm talking about 38 years ago. 38 years ago, except the threat from communism, there was no threat from suicide bombers. There was no threat from terrorists. There was no threat from Al-Qaeda or Hamas or any of these other terrorist groups that have come into existence since the invasion of Afghanistan. And I'm very proud to say that my countrymen and women who came to the United States became proud citizens of this country, and they are all actively involved in working within the region of the United States under the U.S. laws, and there's not been any incident of Afghans that came in at that time in any kind of terrorist activity. But unfortunately, today that world is no longer there. The Reagan era is over. And over the years, after the birth of Osama bin Laden and his creation of Al-Qaeda, which is now metastasized into various other groups, ISIS, ISIL, Daesh, Boko Haram, you name it. You know, they come under different names, but they're all birds of the same feather, and they flock together. And unfortunately, these people that are now, almost like a swarm of locusts that keep going from country to country under the name of Islam, is an insult to the religion of Islam. They are actually insulting a religion that's being worshipped by almost 1.6 billion people around the world. The first thing I just want to make clear is that we Afghans, as an Islamic country, have suffered more under the threat of these so-called Muslims that come dressed in black outfits and carrying a black flag than anybody else. We are losing almost 100 of our citizens a day in Afghanistan, and as these people come in and blow themselves up inside the mosques, screaming Allahu Akbar. You know, the thing about Allahu Akbar is that it means God is great. Muslims call him Allah, Christians call him God, Jewish people call him Yahweh, but it's all the same God. We all pray to one power, and we're all the children of the Prophet Abraham. But these so-called pseudo lying Muslims, they wrap a suicide belt around their waist, and they walk inside the mosque, which is filled with Muslims praying on a Friday. Before blowing themselves up, they yell Allahu Akbar, and then they blow themselves up and kill 50, 60, or 100 Muslims. When they call Allahu Akbar, it means God is great. Before they blow themselves up and before they kill the people, they're actually, in reality, making God a partner in the crime of murder. And that is not what Muslims believe. Muslims do not believe that we will yell Allahu Akbar and just go ahead and kill people. That's not the issue. These people who are doing these killings are now their birthplace. They actually started with Osama bin Laden, as you know, as we have talked about this, in Afghanistan with the Al-Qaeda, and then it moved into the Middle East, and where the Caliphate was created by Baghdadi, and then you have now, the ISIS and the ISIL, and then they spread into Nigeria, where you have the Boko Haram, and it's all over the world. They're all over the world. So they are the enemies of Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, any other religion or any other person, and most of these people adhere to a religion called Wahhabi. The Wahhabi religion was created in Saudi Arabia in 1763 by a man named Abdul Wahab. Abdul Wahab and Ibn Saud, who was a tribal Arab in what is now Saudi Arabia. Ibn Saud asked Abdul Wahab that if he created a kingdom, would Abdul Wahab support him? Abdul Wahab said, if you give me the arms, I will support you. So Ibn Saud went to the British and requested to get arms from them. It was the British government that created Saudi Arabia. This is called Saudi Arabia because it's named after Ibn Saud, the first king of Saudi Arabia. And so Ibn Saud gave the weapons to Abdul Wahab, and Abdul Wahab went on killing people, went on a rampage, because Wahhabis believe in two philosophies. Number one, they believe in jihad, And number two, they believe in killing anyone that does not convert. So this is why they don't care who they kill. They don't care, they don't care who they burn. They don't care whose head they cut off. These people are animals. They are not Muslims. They don't belong to any religion. They do not have any allegiance to anything or anyone except themselves, except for murder, except for rape, except for plunder. And so this is what's happening. And
okay,
I
listen.
totally
let me
agree.
interrupt
Yes.
you a little bit. Let me interrupt you a little bit. So, Prince Seraj, talk to me about how immigration, our open borders, has adversely impacted Afghanistan. Touch on that.
You see that I wish we had a man like President Trump who would set the rules and say borders are closed, that nobody can get in here unless I know exactly what kind of underwear you're wearing. Okay? Because that is exactly what's needed. Unfortunately, Afghanistan's borders are open. It's like a sieve. On one side, we have Iran. On the other side, we have Pakistan. To the north, we have, former Russian provinces. But the problem comes from Russia itself. And then we have northeast, we have China. So we have got people, crisscrossing Afghanistan and coming in, and they are creating their nests all over Afghanistan. You cannot, in today's world, with what's going on and with these murderers on the loose, you cannot even blink. You have to make sure that anybody that comes through your gates, that you know exactly who he is, where he's come from. You have to know his history, because one of the things, I'll give you an example. In Afghanistan, when they're vetting the military for the National Army, the vetting is so stupid and it's so simple that you don't even know who's coming in. They don't what village this guy's come from, what tribe that he belongs to, and this is why you get the ISIS and Daesh members and the Taliban who slip into the Afghan military, get the training from the Americans, get the arms from the Americans, and then turn their guns on the Americans and kill the Americans. It's not the Afghans that are doing that. It is those terrorists like ISIS and Daesh and the rest of them who get vetted or not vetted, who get brought into the military without proper vetting.
Okay,
it's very important.
Okay, you know what?
Important.
I want you to touch on what's going on. You're in Afghanistan is in Central Asia, and all the stands are in there together. Uzbekistan.
Yes, Afghanistan. Afghanistan is not at war with anybody. It is others who are fighting a battle inside Afghanistan and Afghan soil. The terrorists that are active inside Afghanistan, they come from Chechnya, they come from Arab countries. They come from. There are Uzbek. There are terrorists from Uzbekistan.
Yeah, and this is what I wanted to. I wanted you to touch on this terrorist who came into America through a diversity visa from Uzbek. He was from Uzbekistan.
Uzbekistan, yes.
Yeah, I want you to touch on what's going on in Uzbekistan. I'm not.
Uzbekistan itself, the former president of Uzbekistan was a man by the name of Karimov. He ruled Uzbekistan with an iron fist, and he and his daughter, he passed away about a year or two ago, and now there's somebody else in charge. But so long as he was there, he was a high, very tough dictator, and people, of course, did not do anything wrong over there. But there was a group of terrorists that was formed in Uzbekistan, and because they could not operate in Uzbekistan, they all moved to Pakistan, and they were living on the Afghan-Pakistan border. They're still there to this day. So this particular person probably is one of those terrorists that were from Uzbekistan, had moved to Pakistan, and eventually made his way to the United States. This is why it's very important to know. Although President Trump has mentioned eight nations, but my recommendation would be to make sure that anybody that comes from any nation to be vetted properly. To know exactly who he is, where he's come from. Let's say if he's coming from Afghanistan, You have to know what village he's come from, and it's very easy to identify the village. And once you have identified the village, you can find out from the village what tribe he belonged to, and then once you know what tribe he belongs to, you can easily find out if this person is a real person, or is he a fake? Is he a peaceful person, a man of peace, or a man of war?
Okay, so give us your thoughts on this diversity visa program, where the United States instituted a policy. Chuck Schumer wrote this policy, this law, where we let in, by luck, we let people come in from countries that we don't have a high percentage of their population in the United States. We choose countries. What do you think of that diversity visa program? Yeah,
that is absolutely wrong. Okay, the United States, every single human being in the world wants to come to the United States of America. The good wants to come here to make a better living. The bad comes here to do more killing. In the world that you're living in today, you cannot sell lottery, to the individuals. Hey, I'm putting out X number of visas out there. Come and grab it, because you do not know who's going to grab that. Who's going to win that? All right, the good, the bad, or the ugly. So I don't believe in lotteries. I believe in visas. And before a person is issued a visa from any embassy, American embassy, anywhere in the world, that embassy has to be 100% sure who the person is. It's very easy for an embassy. I don't know about Pakistan, or I don't know about how they do it in Uzbekistan, how the American embassy works in other countries. But I know in my country, in Afghanistan, when a person applies for a visa, I know individuals whose parents, this one young lady whose parents are living in San Francisco, and because when they got their visa to come, the girl had just turned 18, so she could not accompany the family, but she's waiting now for 3 years for her visa to come. Although she is very well educated, comes from a very good family, but still she's being tested and vetted before she is able to join her family.
Right, exactly. Talk to me about this whole notion of chain migration. With chain migration, many, in fact, this guy from Uzbekistan, this terrorist, he's had sponsored like 23 people. Now, we don't know if they're his families or if they're his co-conspirators. So to give us your thoughts on this notion of chain migration, which we in America allow. We allow chain migration.
No, you see, the thing is that America is, once I was asked, what do you think of America? I said, if I have to draw a picture of the United States of America, I'll draw a big heart. Because America is a country that thinks with its heart. And your heart is always open. You're a charitable nation. When there's problem anywhere in the world, it doesn't make any difference where it is. Immediately, I remember when I escaped from the Soviet, from the communist takeover, and I came to the U.S. And I wanted to send some clothes to the people on the mountains in Pakistan. I put that small ad in the local paper in Milford, Connecticut. The next day, the 2-car garage was filled to the brim with clothes. I could not even pack them fast enough to send them. This is how much people are responding to it. Americans are very good-hearted people, but you cannot open your door and one person comes in and then he sponsors 20 others. Excuse me, are you a millionaire? Show me your income. If you are an individual and you're earning minimum wage at the McDonald's, you cannot support a family, your own family, leave alone bringing in your uncles and aunts and everybody else. Any individual that becomes a citizen of the United States of America after being vetted properly, and if he wants to sponsor somebody, he has to show to the U.S. government that at no time would the person that he or she is sponsoring will become a burden to the U.S. society, will become a burden, to take money from the mouth and the pockets of an American.
Absolutely. What you're talking about is a merit-based system, and this is what Trump wants to institute. Here in California, we've got a large, I can't remember the exact percentage, but a large percentage of immigrants, legal and illegal, use our welfare system, various forms. I had Stephen Camarado on the phone talking about that. I had him as a guest talking about how legal and illegal, a huge percentage of them use our welfare system, which consists of many different forms of welfare. Well, Prince Seraj, you know what I want to do? I want to give out the call-in number. Are you open to taking phone calls?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. I know you always are. You know, you've been on my show. Let's see, I've interviewed you for years on the Huffington Post, and also when I was at KCAA, the Kathleen Wells Show, I interviewed you quite a bit. And people can Google his name. I spelled it wrong the first time. I'm going to spell it right this time. It's S-E-R-A-J.
J.
I said G before. It's S-E-R-A-J. So
Yeah,
Prince
Ali Seraj. If they go to Ali Seraj, Prince Ali Seraj, to anywhere, Google, Twitter, YouTube, anywhere, they can find me.
Right, and I also want them to see our interview that we conducted on the Huffington Post.
On YouTube, that's on YouTube.
Okay, exactly. And also I want to say, why don't you give listeners, before I open up the phone lines, why don't you give listeners a little bit of your background so they know, aren't you like something like 8 generations of royalty?
No, actually 12 generations, goes back to 250 years of ruling Afghanistan, and I'm proud to say that during the time when my family was ruling Afghanistan, Afghanistan had the golden era. My great-grandfather, 10 generations removed, 10 generations backward, starting in 1827. We know when my family took over Afghanistan, we ruled until 1929, and then there was a break of 9 months where the British funded insurgency against my uncle, King Amanullah, created a situation where the country fell in the hands of the rebels for 9 months. And then my cousins came over and they took over the power back in the country until 1978, when the communists came into Afghanistan, and 19 members of the family were executed, and the rest of us were dispersed all over the world. I am the nephew of His Majesty King Amanullah. Amanullah was the most progressive king in Afghanistan and also in the world, actually. And he's the one who got Afghanistan's independence from the British. And his wife, Queen Soraya, was the first highly educated, spoke 5 languages, and was the first woman in the world, not only in the Islamic world, but in the world, to start the women's movement in 1922, where she removed her veil and told the women of Afghanistan that the country needed both men and women to work side by side, and they could not do it wearing a veil. And so the Queen removed the veil, and the women, women were sent overseas for education, especially in the field of medicine. And unfortunately, the British used that act on the part of my cousin, the Queen, and my uncle, the King, to initiate a movement against them in 1929 by telling people that the King and the Queen had turned against the Islamic religion, and they had become infidels, and they were walking around the streets naked. And this rallied some of the people to start the insurgency against. But in any event...
yeah, I mean, and folks, listeners, you can, as I said, you can Google. In fact, the first interview I did with you was the relation, how under your uncle's reign, how modernity, am I saying it right? How women were, and this was during like the 1920s, how the relationship of women in the country and so on and so forth, the movement, the development, the modernity of women.
Yeah.
And in fact, I have some pictures in that interview, right? So if anyone wants to see, you can see women, they're not wearing, what is that blue, what is it called? The blue,
the burqa.
Yeah, they're not wearing the burqa. Is it pronounced burqa? Yeah. They're wearing regular Western clothes. Is that correct? In the 1920s in Afghanistan. So
1920s, they're all wearing Western clothes. They're being educated. In fact, even after at the end of 1929, end of 29, when our family took over again, the women's life, went back to becoming, more and more modern. If you look at the pictures of 1960s, you see girls with miniskirts. Listen, I am the nightlife father of Afghanistan. I brought the first discotheque in Afghanistan in Kabul in 1970 with a glass dance floor. Afghanistan was a very, very progressive, moderate nation. We were, people would come to Kabul for one day and end up staying there for a year. We had Afghan girls in bikinis swimming in the Intercontinental Hotel. Nobody bothered anybody. I mean, almost like Dubai. If you had a club or a bar in one side, and you had the mosque on the other side. The people, they prayed at the mosque, and those who wanted to go and have a nightlife, they would go to a club.
Okay, I hear the music, Prince Seraj. I hear the music. So we're gonna take a break, and when we come back from the break, we're gonna take phone calls. How does that sound?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so the call-in number, folks, is 866-870-5752. That's 866-870-5752. You can call in and ask. Let's try to focus on immigration, open borders, but you can really call in and talk about anything you want to talk about. Terrorism, whatever. Let's see. Open borders. I said that, right? Immigration. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and I'll be right back after the break and with phone calls so you can speak to Prince Seraj. We'll be right back.
Revolution, control the sound, so shooting rockets to the moon, kids growing up too soon. Politicians say more taxes will solve everything. Stupid people of America, good evening. For those of you who haven't heard my show, that's how I started each and every time. It's to get attention, but I'm serious about it also. There's another thing I say at the beginning of the show. I'll say that again a little. I'll repeat that a little later. But in 1986, I was the most unpolitical, uninformed person you ever want to know in your life. I didn't know anything. I didn't know a city councilman from a senator. But I heard something on the news that piqued my interest. I heard that they were going to amnesty illegal aliens. Now, I live in LA my whole life. I knew that wasn't going to work. And as dumb as I was politically, as stupid as I was politically, I knew that wasn't going to work. And I said to myself, if I'm smart enough to know that, why isn't the Congress of the United States smart enough to know it? And why isn't Ronald Reagan smart enough to know that? I say, if I'm uninformed and know it, why don't they? They were professionals. They didn't seem to get it. So I got involved in this issue in various ways out in Los Angeles. I got involved with FAIR. I got involved with Barbara Cole, Glenn Spencer, other people you may know. And all of a sudden, one day, when Bill Clinton was president, some people came to me and said, you need to be on the radio. Now, I'm thinking to myself, an introverted, shy guy like me, why would they want me on the radio, and what could I bring to the discussion? Well, it was obvious to me that they must have been thinking about somebody else, but they talked me into it. And trying to figure out what I was going to say to these white folks the next night who would talk me into being on this radio. What was I going to say to them to tell them I'm not going to do it? I really didn't know. See, where I come from, you don't do things like this. You don't get involved. You don't go public. You don't have your voice out there. But these nice people said, no, you can do it. You can do it. So I went on the next night, and it went fine. And so I was told. And we built a show from there. They said we would be on approximately 3 to 6 months. That's how long these type of shows lasted. We're going on our 10th year now. And it was my first, and I use the term white folks. I don't want you to get the wrong idea about that. I've never been around a lot of white people in my life, and this was a new experience. You guys kind of get things done. I mean, you know, and a lot of black folks do too in certain ways. But this was new to me. Activism was new to me. And we took this show, and what we did with it, we tried to get the perfect mix. And at the first time I was on, maybe I talked a little too much or a little too less. I don't know. But then I figured out that what we needed a perfectly mixed show. So I now decided to do a monologue, do a 10-minute monologue. And after the monologue, we take a break. And after the break, we have something called the most horriblest clown of the week. Now, I know it's bad English. Boy, you should have seen the emails I got from school teachers on that one. But I did the most horriblest clown of the week, and most of the horriblest clowns have been Republicans, believe it or not. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat either. I'm very independent. I'm registered independent. But I pick on the Republicans because on this issue, they have not done their job. They have not done their job. The successful party in this country is the Democrats because they are delivering, I'm not saying they're helping the country, but they are delivering to their constituents what their constituents want. Can you Republicans say that? So I pick on the Republicans a little harder than I pick on them. And when I do this, I do it because I want them to do better. Now, people came to me and said, well, you have no PhD. Most of the talk show hosts on the radio have PhDs, masters, whatever. I don't know what all that stuff means anyway, but I will list my qualifications. I live in South Central Los Angeles. I have been there almost my whole life since I was 4 years old. I live next door to people who have chickens in their yard. I live next door to people who hang their laundry on the fence. I live next door to people who have 3 families in a 2-bedroom home. I live on the same street with people that have 7 and 8 families living in 4 and 5-bedroom homes. I live on the same block where every wall is graffitied with MS-13 and 18th Street gang graffiti. That's my qualifications. I have the qualifications of having my children go to schools where their education is dumbed down by bilingual education. I go to schools, I went to schools there that were 90% black when I was there. They are now 94, 95, 96% Hispanic. Now you say, well, what's the big deal? Those are all either illegal alien children or what I call jackpot babies. The babies born in America to illegal alien children who are misinterpreting the 14th Amendment, which was meant for my ancestors, not for them. The radio show, from the day we started it, has been 99% immigration. 99%. And I have been told by experts, you need to talk about other issues if the show is going to last. Well, it's lasting. And if somebody calls, asks my opinion on another issue, what do I think about Obama, what do I think about Michael Jackson, I give it, and it's right back to immigration, because that is the issue that is hurting Los Angeles more than any other issue there is. Yeah, we've got a problem with jobs, we've got a problem with gangs, we've got problems with lack of water. Guess what all of that comes back to? Too many people coming too fast. Now, one of my other qualifications is this. I have a son who could not get a job. He was a high school graduate, could not get a job. He applied for over 40 jobs and was told he could not have any of them because he didn't speak a foreign language. There are children in Los Angeles, black, white, and American Hispanics who speak no Spanish, who cannot work at McDonald's. Something's wrong. So we decided to do this radio show, and we did it. And we tried to make it something that people would be interested in. I spoke out to all people, but I also spoke out mainly to the black community because they're the ones who were kind of being quiet and not saying a whole lot. But if you talk to black folks one-on-one, they're hot about it. They're very angry. But as a people, they kind of, we don't say a lot about it. So now they're starting to speak out. We've got these black leaders in Los Angeles, self-appointed, who, well, we've got to form coalitions with the Hispanic people. We've got to, and I'm not against Hispanic people. That's not what I'm saying. They want to form coalitions with illegal aliens, and it doesn't work. They are killing us in Los Angeles. These gangs are killing us in LA.
That was the late, great Terry Anderson, and we have a problem here in Los Angeles with illegal immigration. This is what I want to talk about. Prince Seraj, this is what we have a problem with: illegal immigration, open borders. These people aren't even legal in the United States, and yet Black men don't have jobs. This is a serious problem we're facing. Can you relate? Oh, did you hear me, Prince Seraj?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I certainly can relate. You see, the thing is that people seem to forget that, or do not understand that having a citizenship is a privilege. It's not a right. And that privilege has to be earned. It's not just given away through lottery, or it's not just thrown up in the sky and say, grab what you can, and you become a citizen. They have to earn the privilege. And to earn the privilege, they have to have a clean background. They have to be legally employed in the United States, and they have to have a job that can support them and their family, and they do not become a burden to the societies or to the states or the cities and towns that they're living in. Unfortunately, the way the doors of the U.S., especially the doors to the South, has been left wide open, that anybody can sneak in. From what I hear, you've got maybe 11 million, probably more than 11 million.
Yeah, it's probably more like 30. They've been saying 11 million for probably 20 years, since the 90s. It's probably more.
I think it's a lot more than 11 million.
Right.
But the point is this: that these people, the majority of them, because of hardship in their own countries, they slip across the border in the United States to get a job, to work. We have two problems here. Number one, these people that slip across the border, and number two, those companies that hire them. We should have two sets of laws in the U.S. One is, of course, to close the border, to make sure that nobody gets in illegally. If they want to come legally, they apply and they get vetted, and then if they're acceptable, they can come in. And the second is to make sure that the companies and corporations and individuals. I mean, I'm sure most of the wealthy people in Los Angeles who live in limelight, the people that work around their homes, they're probably not legal immigrants. I'm sure they come from across the border. There's nothing wrong from coming from a different country, so long as you are invited to come or you're accepted in this country by being given the right documents after being vetted. Especially in today's world, it is extremely dangerous. You do not know what kind of an individual is going to slip across the border and what he is carrying in his handbag or backpack as he's coming across the border. With the amount of technology that is available over the internet, that anybody can make anything destructive. It is very dangerous now to allow leave the borders open to allow people to flow in. I'm not against legal immigration. I'm not against people with clean records applying for a visa and getting a visa and through the proper channels. But I am against on leaving. You will no longer leave the doors of your house open. When you go out of the house, you just don't leave the doors open. You might as well put up a sign and say, hey, my house is open, come and steal anything you want. Mm-hmm. You cannot do that.
Right.
Just as you cannot leave the doors of your house open, you should not leave the doors of your country open, for God's sake, because you do not know what kind of, in today's world, I'm not talking about 30 years ago, we didn't have these problems. 30 years ago, we didn't have suicide bombers. 30 years ago, we did not have mass murderers. We did have, occasionally you had, like the Texas murder case, the Texas University, the tower, it was way in the 1950s or something, 60s like that. But it was, very, very remote. But now look at what happened in the U.S. in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah,
Los Angeles,
exactly.
California, and now Texas.
Right.
I mean, you are faced. The United States is faced with great. Why aren't these? My question is that the richest country in the world is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has got hundreds of thousands of hectares of land that nobody is living on. Okay, why don't the U.S. government make a deal with Saudi Arabia and let Saudi Arabia use a part of its money to build a village and invite these people to come over there? Why don't we do something to, instead of allowing...
Invite what people? Invite what people are you talking about exactly?
I'm talking about these immigrants that are coming in from let's say from Syria or from Libya or from from other countries in the from mostly from the Middle East. There are some North African nations that their immigrants are moving coming into Europe, but mostly I'm talking about the Middle East. Why don't through the United Nations set up camps, proper housing, okay, and in areas like Saudi Arabia, in areas like the United Arab Emirates. I mean, look what Jordan is doing. Jordan has got over 1 million immigrants on their soil, and Jordan can't even afford it. But, because the king is a very gracious man, he's opened the door. Look at Lebanon. They got over 1 million.
But but a lot. I've had people say, just to be the devil's advocate, I've had people call in and say, or people have said to me that, but for Americans' foreign policy, we wouldn't be having this problem of migration, and refugees. What's your response to that?
No, you see, foreign policy's got nothing to do with migration. I mean, United States was not a country that went ahead and colonized other countries of the world so that they would be faced with the former colonies now coming back to your door and bang on your door, let me in. The reason most of the people are going to Europe, to London, to Germany, to France, because the Europeans were very much involved in North Africa. The Europeans are very much involved in the Middle East. I mean, look, after the Ottoman Empire, the British and the French divided the Middle East between themselves. They created, they expanded Lebanon, they created Kuwait, they divided Iraq, they divided Syria, Libya, and now those people are coming to the doors of the European and say, okay, you did this to us and now take care of us. But the United States is not responsible for what's going on in Europe. But the United States is responsible for its own borders. But because this is a wealthy country, and because this is, regardless of what's been happening, in the U.S., but compared to what's happening to my part of the world, to Afghanistan, or what's going on, the United States, fortunately, is not, faced with the same kind of dangers as we are on a daily basis. But because of the wealth of this nation, and because of the laws of this nation, and because of the easy, devil may care kind of an attitude, oh, poor guy, come on in and I will greet you. Yesterday, it was gracious to do something like that. Today, it is stupid. Today, you don't know who you're living, allowing to enter your territory. You have to make sure that the person that comes in, that you even know the color of his underwear.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk to me about this issue of, talk to me about how things are going now in Afghanistan after we had the war, right after 9/11. After we invaded.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Kathy, in Afghanistan, since the last time we talked, the situation is worse now than it was in 2009, 2010.
And why is that? Why is that?
It's because you cannot. Afghanistan is a traditional country. Afghanistan is not a country. Even to this day, Afghanistan has not created a single terrorist. Although this terrorist kid in Florida who went inside a club and killed some people. Because he was born in the U.S., but they said his parents came from Afghanistan. His father, we don't even know where his father came from. He lives in California and he's got his own radio show and he has declared himself the president of Afghanistan here in the United States. We don't even know the person.
Oh yeah, the guy. So I remember. So the guy that killed those folks in the nightclub in Florida, he was born in the U.S., but his father was from Afghanistan, correct?
The father says he's from Afghanistan, but nobody knows that he's from Afghanistan. He has also declared himself the president of Afghanistan here, and he's got his television show, and he even appeared at the Democratic fundraiser for Hillary. He's sitting 3 rows behind Hillary Clinton during one of those functions. But the point is, what I'm trying to make is that every terrorist in the world that has come out of that area, they have mostly, majority of them have been trained in Pakistan. They've come from Pakistan. We know this. The people from the World Trade Center, they came, through Pakistan, although there are some Saudis in that group. The bombing of the Madrid train station, the London tube station, and all of these, the underwear bomber and the shoe bomber and all of these.
But the Taliban is in Afghanistan, right? I mean, I see videos of, like women getting their heads chopped off.
Not in Afghanistan. No, in Afghanistan, they don't chop off the head. In Afghanistan, they just go and shoot. The chopping of the head is they do it by the Daesh and the ISIS. Although in Afghanistan, now that ISIS has found a foothold in Afghanistan on the Afghan-Pakistan border, there have been some beheadings at the hands of the ISIS and ISIL, but not the Taliban. But the point is this, that the Taliban, they keep talking about, let's make a deal with the Taliban. The United States has been in Afghanistan since 2001, for 16 years. $1 billion have been spent in Afghanistan. Today, the situation in Afghanistan is worse than it was 16 years ago. In Afghanistan, we have always defended our own country. We are, you Americans and we Afghans are the only two nations that have gotten our freedom and our independence from the British. We fought bravely on the battlefield. We fought the British 3 times, but not once did we cut off British heads, and not once did we blow ourselves up and and blow the other Britishers up. We fought on the battlefield, even during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. There was no kidnapping of the Russians. There was no killing of Russian families. It was a battle on the battlefield. We killed and we got killed, but we fought, as warriors and as soldiers. The reason is because over these past 16 years, the West has tried to build Afghanistan in its own image. Our people are warriors. They have defended their country for 5,000 years. Alexander the Great, Afghanistan was the only country that Alexander the Great could not conquer. In fact, he laid siege to the gates of Kabul for 6 months. And then he wrote a letter to his mother, said that these people are brave fighters, I cannot defeat them. And he changed his way and went to India. The reason is because the West is not allowing us to defend ourselves. I am the president of the National Coalition for Dialogue with the Tribes of Afghanistan. I'm related to every tribe in Afghanistan. Why don't you ask me how we can bring peace to Afghanistan, how we can end the 16-year war in Afghanistan? I'm so frustrated that I've written a book, which is now coming out. The book 1 is coming out November 21st. It's called, by Hell Press, called The Lost King, The Memoirs of an Afghan Prince. And book 2 hopefully will come out after that, where I have relayed the story of how everything happened in Afghanistan. The reason we succeeded against the Soviet Union was because President Reagan partnered with the Afghan warriors, Afghan tribes, to fight the Red Army. There was not one single American soldier in Afghanistan to fight the Russians. There was not even one single American plane in Afghanistan to fight the Soviet Union. I was the one who worked with President Reagan's administration. Although Charlie Wilson takes credit for this, this was my work to get Russian equipment from Sadat of Egypt to the Afghan freedom fighters to fight the Soviet Union. I was the one who promoted the shipping of Stinger missiles to the freedom fighters so we could bring down those helicopters, the Hind helicopters. The 8 years that Reagan was the president, those were the years that the Afghans, with the help of their American brothers and friends, not only threw the Russians out of Afghanistan, but also brought the Cold War to an end and got rid of worldwide communism. Today, because our people the tribes are not being helped, they are not being assisted in any shape or form. So they are sitting in their villages. They can't do anything because if they go against the Taliban, they'll get bombed by the NATO countries saying, oh, these are Taliban attacking somebody. So they're sitting in their homes and the Taliban are pouring in from these borders, which is wide open, and there's nobody stopping them. And this is why equipment is being shipped now from Iran and also from Russia and Afghanistan. So the situation is a lot worse. If
we only have a few more minutes. We only have 2 more minutes. So just give me a summary. How do Afghans feel about President Trump's foreign policy?
Afghans are very happy about President Trump's. Afghans always considered Americans as their friends, always. But the thing that is happening now is that the people are forgotten. The people are becoming forgotten. Building a house without walls and without foundation, and starting with the roof will keep on collapsing. They keep assisting the government without thinking about the people. You should go from ground up, not from roof down. So if the Trump administration would only listen to the voices of the people, forget about the government. Governments come and governments go, but people are always there. We are ready, willing, and able to take the front line to defend our country if we would get the same support from the Trump administration as we did from the Reagan administration to take the battle to the enemy and get rid of the group that President Trump refers to as evil forces. The evil forces are now in Afghanistan. And if we are not careful and we do not hold them back, they will turn Afghanistan into a caliphate. Then it will become more dangerous.
Okay, well, thank you. There's my music, Prince Seraj. Thank you for being my guest today. I want to encourage people to go and look at the interview that I've conducted, which gives you some background, and it tells you how, during his uncle's reign, how women were treated in the 1920s, more westernized, more into modernity, more modern. I encourage you to go and read that interview on the Huffington Post. Also, I would like to say to my listeners, I want to end the show now with a love song to you who have deep roots in America, deep roots in California, and deep roots in Los Angeles. Thank you for listening to the Naked Truth Report, and thank you, Prince Seraj, for being my guest today.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much. I'll be sure and to go to the Naked Truth Report YouTube channel and subscribe, please, and also go to the Naked Truth Report Facebook page and like that page. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. And did I mention that that was Terry Anderson that we heard? Yes, we heard Terry Anderson. So please go to the Naked Truth Report YouTube page and like it. And thank you. And this is my love to Americans with deep roots and Californians with deep roots and Los Angelinos with deep roots. Thank you for listening to the Naked Truth Report.
The Naked Truth Report was sponsored by Kathleen Wells on AM 870, The Answer.